Hello guys, welcome to episode 43 of the Beat Your Backlog podcast, a podcast discussing the thing gamers like to put off, get to another day, and oh yes, we'll definitely beat later, their backlog. I'm your host Adam, and today we are blasting off with Team Asobi's highly rated mascot 3D platformer Astro Bot. The game released back on September 6th and came out to astronomical success, with it currently sitting at a 94 critic review and a 9.3 user review on Metacritic. Players had been warmed up to Astro Bot and his lovable sidekicks in Astro's Playroom, a free game come tech demo installed for free on every PlayStation 5. When beating the demo for Astro's Playroom, I remember thinking to myself, wow, this guy really needs his own game, and 4 years later he got it. But is the game really that good? And how much does Sony's nostalgia play into its success, and is it a worthy rival to Super Mario? Let's find out on this week's episode of the Beat Your Backlog podcast. But before we do, let me remind you to please follow if you're enjoying the podcast so far, subscribe and review the podcast with a 5 stars wherever you're listening. Now let's get on with the show. So the story of Astro Bot is short and sweet. You play as Astro Bot, a cute blue and white robot who looks like a cross between Eve from WALL-E or Evie from WALL-E and one of those robot dog toys that were popular back in the 2000s. So he's very kind of, like silver and blue, very rounded, shaped, has these big blue LED eyes. And your Astro Bot is seemingly the leader or captain of the mothership, which is a giant PlayStation 5 with LED eyes. And LED eyes are basically a theme throughout this entire game and kind of series, I suppose, because everything in the game has LED eyes, which is very cute, but also kind of very much like, okay, lots of eyes. And the mothership carries you and your Astro friends onto your next adventure through the kind of galaxies or through the universe. As you're blasting through space, a giant green alien attacks the mothership, stealing its processor, which causes it to crash on Sony's version of Arrakis, which is basically a desert wasteland world. During the crash, your 300 Astro Bot friends and parts of the mothership are lost amongst the surrounding galaxies. As the leader of the Astro Bots, it is your job to investigate the surrounding galaxies, find your friends, and repair your beloved mothership. And that's pretty much the story. It's kind of like very quick, gets you into it, gets you into the kind of gameplay straight away. And you awaken on this crashed world of Arrakis. You see what's left of the mothership, the PlayStation 5 there. It's got all of its parts missing. It's got like the side panels from it missing. It's looking very sad. And you then can kind of explore this desert world or go on your DualSense jet, which is, if you've seen the Astro Bot DualSense controller, they made it more or less looks exactly the same as that. And that blasts you off into space. And as you explore the galaxies, you'll soon notice that they kind of all fall into a template. Levels are broken up into different worlds, or I should say galaxies are broken up into different worlds, which all have different themes and settings. But these range in the typical video game kind of platformer tropes of there's a snow world, there's an ice world, there's a jungle world, there's a desert world, which we've already talked about, there's volcano worlds, and kind of like everything in between. So if you've ever played any kind of 2D or 3D platformer and you think of the most standard type of worlds that those games have, it will be in this game. But what I think is very cool is that even though the kind of themes and the kind of tropes of the platform are used in the game, there's always some kind of like refreshing twist to them. So for example, one of my favorite levels or worlds was when you go to this beach world and there's just like rubbish and trash everywhere. And part of the level is about you cleaning up the trash to kind of help the marine life of the beach world, which I thought was really nice. So yeah, it wasn't just a standard, okay, go to the beach and platform around. There was kind of like also a twist to it and a hidden theme, and the level itself was very, very cool. And all of the levels kind of do that. And throughout the entire game, so it might be that you go into World 1 or Galaxy 1, which is based around the gorilla, you'll see a beach level there. And then when you go into the kind of Galaxy 2, there'll also be a beach theme there, but maybe it's slightly twisted up a little bit again. So maybe there was one where there's it's kind of like a pirate theme, and it kind of works like all of that with all of the different themes of the level. So yeah, you each galaxy you go into you'll see the same theme again, like the same ice or snow world, but there will be some twist to it, which is really cool. And in each of these worlds, there are two main types of collectibles to find. The first are your Astro Bot friends, and these guys can kind of be hidden in plain sight, or you might have to earn them by completing some sort of platforming feat or finding a hidden area in the level. And what's cool is a lot of the Astro Bots you're looking for aren't just carbon copies of your Astro Bot, but they are cosplaying as some of the biggest and most memorable characters from PlayStation's 30-year history. And I really don't want to spoil too much about what characters show up in the game. Like I said, there are 300. Not all. I don't think all 300 are kind of like cosplayers of other games. Like some of them are just generic Astro Bots, but I would say at least probably 200 of them are themed around another game. And yeah, it's very, very cool when you find them. And just as like a little teaser, and if you've seen any marketing material for the game, you'll have already noticed, but there are some characters from God of War, from Uncharted, from the Horizon series, alongside characters from some of kind of Sony's classic associated IP, so not IP that is owned by Sony, but IP that you do associate with PlayStation, like Resident Evil, Crash Bandicoot, Monster Hunter, and many, many more. And for me, finding these little guys was by far the best part of the game. To find them, all you have to do is explore every nook and cranny of each game's levels. And though this kind of might seem like a mighty task, so between each, depending on each world or each level, there's might be between like 5 to 8 of these guys to find. It might seem a bit daunting, but I always kind of found the challenge of actually finding them kind of just right. So it's kind of, if you're exploring the level because you're enjoying the exploration, then you probably will come across all of them on your first run through the level. The Astro Bots, yeah, I thought they were always kind of not easy to find, but once you learn the level design, you kind of could see the signs of like, there's probably one here. And some of them really are just hidden in plain sight. Like there might be a tree in front of you and one's hanging from a tree and you have to jump up and hit it, and that unlocks it. And what's really cute is that the bots then also, like, they get collected in your DualSense on the screen, so they're all just kind of sat there where the touchpad is, that opens up, and then you can see all of them there, like kind of waving at you every time you pause the screen, which is really nice. In addition to the bots, each level also has 2 or 3 puzzle pieces to find, and these ones are a little bit trickier, I would say, to sniff out than the bots are, but they're definitely worth finding because they unlock cool buildings back on the crash site planet, which we'll talk about a little bit later. In addition, what's cool is that 2 levels per galaxy have secret exits to find, so again, very kind of platform Mario sort of trope. They have hidden exits, which sometimes it might be like some sort of puzzle that you have to do to unlock them, or it might be that you get to the end goal of the level, and it might be that if you look around, there might be some secret path that you can go on to get to the secret exit, which is really, really cool. And if you do manage to find them, it takes you to a secret galaxy called a Lost Galaxy, which also has its own unique worlds to explore and Astro Bots to find. And what I really loved about the game is that it's definitely kind of like a collectathon-y in that sense of finding the bots, finding the puzzle pieces, finding the lost galaxies, but it really doesn't waste your time with it. So the game is very forthcoming in the sense of that it shows you on the galaxy itself how many of the Astro Bots you found out of how many. So there might be 30 in the galaxy, and it will show you, okay, you found 15 so far. Same with the puzzle pieces. And same with the secret exits. And then when you go into the galaxy as well, each world also has like a summary of what you found so far. And it also tells you which worlds have the secret exit. So again, it's not like you just kind of wasting your time in every single world, like jumping into the environment or jumping into walls, seeing if there's like a secret door there. It's like, no, this one has a secret exit. And if you obviously find it, it then kind of check marks it off. So if you are kind of like into, I guess, check marky games, it's very good in that sense because it really doesn't waste your time. You can see exactly what you found and where you found it, and there's no kind of second guessing like, did I get all of the Astro Bots here? Did I get all of the puzzle pieces? It tells you straight away. And what's also cool is if you maybe didn't find all of the collectibles in one go through the level, when you return to the level, there is also like a little helper that you can purchase for 200 coins. So also in the levels you collect like these golden coins. And if you pay 200 coins, you get this little robotic bird that sort of follows you around through the levels. And if you get close to a secret that you haven't found yet, the bird will start kind of vibrating, and it almost looks like it has like a radar dish on its head, and it points in the direction where the secret is. So it's also very helpful because it doesn't, it shows you the stuff that you need. It doesn't show you the secrets that you've already found. And it's like a cool way to kind of be like, okay, I want some help finding them, but it's not like, but it's kind of cool because it prevents you having to then Google the solutions. You can just buy the bird, run through the level, the bird will tell you where everything is. Again, there might be some kind of puzzle aspect to it of, okay, the bird is pointing towards this statue, and I'm like, well, what can I do to the statue? And there might be something in the area where maybe there's a cannon that you can twist around that will shoot the statue, and then that unlocks like stairs to the secret level, things like that. So I really like that mechanic, because again, I think it's very nice of the game to be like, okay, we understand players, they want to collect everything, but they don't want to waste too much time just really trying everything and almost like pixel hunting for where they could go. So there is this little helper there that you can purchase with in-game coins, which is really cool. And it's just these like little quality of life mechanics of the game that really help make finding the Astro Bot's puzzle pieces and secret exits my favorite part of the game. And then finally, in each galaxy, there is also a boss planet that is always locked. So when you first unlock the galaxy, you can't just go and fight the boss. To unlock it, you need to find a set number of Astro Bots that the lock tells you to. So it might say that if you're on Galaxy 3, maybe you need 30 Astro Bots to unlock the boss world. And I kind of like this mechanic, because it means that you can't just rush through all of the worlds, like just speed run them without looking for the Astro Bots, because I think that's such a big part of the game. But I always thought like the number was realistic enough that if you just kind of played through it without really looking, you would find enough Astro Bots to be able to unlock the boss door anyway, if you're just kind of playing naturally, which was nice. And yeah, the bosses, I thought they were all very kind of memorable. Like they're very cartoony. Obviously, they fit to the world. Like there was one where it was like this giant robotic skeleton pirate that you had to fight, and you had to kind of like what's that game called? The Shadow of the Colossus, where you have to climb up the Colossus to then kill it. That was kind of like the level, or the design of the boss, which was very cool. There's also a very cool one of like this chameleon that keeps changing its skin or its camouflage, and depending on what camouflage it has, that's what type of attacks it's going to do. But the bosses, yeah, even though like their designs, their character designs are very cool, the boss battles themselves are sort of yeah, they remind me of this Nintendo, okay, just do the same thing 3 times and that's it. That's how all of them work. In sense of challenge, some of them are not necessarily more challenging, but I think can be a little bit more annoying with it. Like I didn't really have any trouble with the bosses themselves. There was like a King Cobra one where he was a little bit annoying, but I can't. It's mostly because his area in which you have gets smaller and smaller, and then he keeps spawning more and more kind of minions to attack, and then you have such a small space to move, and then he attacks you over that space as well. So you need to be stood in like a very specific part of this tiny area where there's no enemies and where he can't hit you, which was a little bit annoying. But what's really cool is that when you do beat them, you kind of you unlock a Sony themed Astro Bot who takes you to a secret world in the galaxy with mechanics based around the game that Astro Bot is from. So again, this isn't really spoilery, but one of the worlds is a God of War themed world. And again, if you've seen any marketing material for the game, you'd have seen this. And what's cool is, yeah, you get the Leviathan axe, which you can then throw around. And there's also like the game is based around, or the level I should say, is based around kind of some of the puzzles from the game where, you know, you throw the axe and freeze a gear that like holds a drawbridge down so that you can cross, things like that. So it's really, really cool. And what I liked is like, yeah, you can probably, there's I think 5 worlds in total. 3 of them you can probably guess what they would be off the top of your head. Like I said, one of them is God of War, but there are 2 worlds that definitely are out of left field, which you would never ever guess. And I'm kind of guessing a lot of people probably don't even know what games they are, because they are such like OG Sony IPs that aren't really relevant anymore, but it's so cool that they decided to make a world out of them. And yeah, these are definitely the highlights of finishing the galaxies, getting to go into these worlds, experience these mechanics, find all of the Astro Bots and puzzle pieces there, and just again, if you have this kind of check mark mentality for kind of Ubisoft games, it's just a perfect game for that. Of like, okay, I've finished everything, I found everything. The galaxy then gets like a little gold crown above it if you found everything. It's very, very satisfying. But what are we actually doing in these colourful PlayStation themed worlds? Well, before I tell you, let me remind you that if you're enjoying the podcast so far, please remember to follow and give us a 5-star wherever you are listening. And yes, surprise, surprise, in this 3D platforming game, you'll be doing, well, a lot of 3D platforming. Astro Bot's controls are pretty simple. You press X or cross to jump, and then you can do like a prolonged hover by holding down X and moving the left joystick. And then on square, you have a punch attack, which you can use to break pots or kind of interact with switches in the level, or use it to attack enemies. And that's pretty much the game. There's only really those 2 buttons. On some worlds, the levels are kind of based around a certain item that you can only use in that world. So, for example, there are these backpacks that you find, and lots of worlds are designed around specific backpacks. So there's one where it's like a chicken which shoots you if you hold down L2 and R2, it shoots you like vertically up in the air. There's a bulldog one which shoots you kind of horizontally through the air. There's like these two frog ones which look like, if you've ever played the game Arms on the Nintendo Switch, they're sort of like that. So if you press R2, the right arm kind of extends and punches. If you press L2, the left arm extends and punches. And you can use these to kind of almost like George of the Jungle, sort of like vine swing your way through the level. Like if you press R, you'll swing on with R, and then you let go of R2, and then you press L2, and then you'll catch the next ledge and swing with that one, which is very cool. And there's also like one, an elephant, where it kind of sucks up liquid in the level, and then when you jump and press R2 or L2, it will then create a platform below you, so you can kind of take a break whilst jumping, and it means you can get up to different heights or different ledges which you wouldn't otherwise be able to get to, which is very cool. And when I first saw them, I got really excited because I thought, oh, this is really cool. Like, is every level going to have its own unique mechanic, which is only in that level? Because it sort of pinged my brain a little bit and reminded me of the Wonder Flowers from Super Mario Wonder, where in that game, there's always a Wonder Flower hidden in the level somewhere, and when you get it, the level completely changes from what it was before, from like the basic 2D Mario platforming into something completely random and new. And unfortunately, unlike Super Mario Wonder, not every level has a unique backpack or is designed uniquely. They do get reused throughout the game. However, I think they are reused kind of sparingly, so you kind of rotate through them, and you're like, oh, okay, cool, now I've got the Bulldog backpack again. Nice, I know how to use it now, and I know how to how to get through the level with it, or what the level is going to entail because I have the backpack. One that was really cool was, it wasn't necessarily a backpack, but it turned you into a sponge, which was cool because it would then mean like you would be quite small, but if you went to water, you could suck up the water, and the water would make you kind of giant. So they are really kind of like unique. Like there was only one level with that, for example, and there was another one where it turned you into a mouse, and then you shrink down really small, and it means you can get into all of like the different cracks of the level. And again, that was a really unique one because it was only used once, but some of them are used multiple times. So it's kind of like a little bit like Wonder. Like sometimes you might go into the level and be like, oh yeah, there's a completely new backpack that I've never used before, but it was more like the kind of standard ones, like I would say the chicken, the elephant, the bulldog, the frogs. They were used quite often. And that kind of then leads us on to, because we're comparing it to Super Mario, is the game better than Mario? Because that was like a lot of when the game released, that was kind of the conversation of, does 3D Mario finally have a competitor? Because 3D Mario as a 3D platform is just such like on an echelon, like above everything else. And for Astro Bot, I think that though the platforming is great, I don't think it's as good as the 3D Mario games, because I think in Astro Bot there's less chance for the player to get kind of creative with their jumps and with their platformings, because there are only really two types of jumps to do. So like I said, it's you press X to jump and then you hold X to hover, and that's all you can do. Whereas in Mario, you have the long jump, you have like the spin jump, you have the back jump, you have the regular jump, you have like the combination of doing 3 jumps one after the other and then doing a long jump at the end. Like there's way more ways to sort of maneuver around the worlds in Mario than there is in Astro Bot, because Astro Bot, it's more just about like I guess it's a bit more like sort of speedrunny in a sense. It's more about like the timing of when you jump and how you move. So it's way more simple, but I do think it's sort of less creative. Like Astro Bot makes me think more of maybe Super Mario Maker, in a sense of like if to move in that world you have to kind of specifically jump, get all of your jump timings exactly correct to maneuver smoothly through the world. Whereas like Super Mario Odyssey, I feel like there was like a challenge to it of like, okay, I can see there's a really high ledge up there. Can I string together lots of different types of jumps to make my way up to the ledge, and like throw the hat, land on the hat, jump, do a backflip, throw the hat again, land, jump, things like that. And Astro Bot doesn't really have that. And I think maybe it's because Astro Bot, like, it seems funny to say, but I think it's maybe because Astro Bot seems a bit much more kind of child friendly than Mario. Like I said, I think Astro Bot himself, the design really reminds me of these toys from the 2000 era. But I think this mostly comes down to like in the regular worlds, so the regular levels, there isn't really much challenge there. Like the challenge comes from finding the Astro Bots or finding the puzzle pieces. Whereas again in Super Mario, if you compare it to Super Mario Odyssey, in the worlds there was so many moons hidden around where there were really easy ones where you could again like do very simplistic platforming to get to them, and then there were really really hard ones where you were like, okay, I know I have to like kind of execute this really complex and creative jump to do it. And that isn't really the case in Astro Bot. It's more like the basic worlds are very easy and you just run through them and collect everything. However, there are some challenge levels you can find in 4 of the 6 galaxies you explore, and these challenges are then kind of linked to the I don't really know why, but they're linked to the PlayStation sacred symbols. So you actually have to go like sort of explore the overworld of the galaxy, and then eventually you'll find like an asteroid that if you blow it up, like a cross or a square or a circle or a triangle, fly out, and then you go to that level, unlock the level, and then it gives you 4 more challenge levels to do. And I think it is kind of cool that these levels are set apart from the main worlds, so that those looking for a challenge have to actually then actively go and find it themselves. Like they don't necessarily block the progress, which again makes me think like maybe it's because for kids, like they want to do the basic worlds, and these levels, they don't necessarily hinder anything. Like at the end of the levels, all there is one Astro Bot that you find, and that's it. Nevertheless, even though they are separate, I do find the difficulty curve on these levels to be a little bit annoying. And I think it's because the levels themselves were well designed, but in most of them, they're way too long. So your Astro Bot only has 1 life. So if he's hit once by anything, he is toast. And in the regular world, this isn't necessarily a problem because there are so many checkpoints that if you get hit, you just respawn like 2 seconds later, and you're probably maximum, I don't know, like 10 seconds away from where you just died. However, in the challenge levels, you have to redo the entire level from the very beginning if you get hit. And I know like these levels are supposed to be challenging, and I think it is good to have challenge in a platforming game. But I think having to restart them from the very beginning felt a little frustrating, because a lot of the times when you die, it's usually right after you've just overcome like a new section of the level. So it might be that you go into section 1 and you try 4 or 5 times to do it. You manage to get over the section, and then come section 2 straight away, and then you get hit by something and die, and then you're like, oh, that's annoying, now I have to redo section 1 again. And section 2 I didn't really have a chance to get to because I don't really understand what was going on, and that happened all the time. And how the game goes is like you then have to, I suppose, learn every single section perfectly until you get to the end. But I think it would have been much nicer if you had some sort of checkpoint halfway through, just to give you like a little bit of a breather to be like, okay, what's coming next? Because I really don't think the challenge actually came from the platform. I felt like once I knew what to do in these sections, I could execute them more or less straight away. But the challenge came in the length of the levels. That like, okay, once I executed section 1, I then had to instantly try to get through section 2. And of course, sometimes that would happen, but most of the times you would die and have to restart from the very beginning of the level. And yeah, just in my own experience, I had an especially hard time with a circle level where you had to spray a rubber duck. You had to spray water from a rubber duck to turn lava into obsidian, because I felt like the spray was so random that sometimes blocks would turn to obsidian and sometimes they wouldn't. And if you had like a path through them, like a jump, it might be that on one try that specific area where you usually land didn't turn to obsidian, which was annoying. And then there was another one on a cross level where it was meant to be like rhythm based, where you had to jump to the beat, but I didn't get it. So I had to kind of like, just bash my head against the wall to make sure I did it. That was the very last level that I beat in the game. Actually, I saved it to last because I was struggling so much with it. And like I said, I think it would have been nice to have a checkpoint, sort of again like you do like when you see people playing these really hard levels on Super Mario Maker, that halfway through the level there's a checkpoint so you can kind of breathe and okay, I don't have to go back and do the first half again. And because it would have just given me a bit more time to think about what was coming next, and also just not be scared to experiment, to be like, okay, what do I need to do here? Like it very much felt like, okay, I just have to try to be as quick and again kind of like speedrunnery as possible to not get hit or not like fall off a ledge. Whereas I think if there had been a checkpoint, I would have felt a bit more at ease and a bit more like, I can try something new. And I think this is annoyingly kind of comes to a head with the master level, which you unlock in the game if you collect all 300 Astro Bots. And this level, again, it's not necessarily that hard to platform through, but it is so long. And I think it just really highlights the problem of the challenge being more about the length of the level rather than the actual platforming. And it got to the point where I was just like, I'm not doing this. Like I've collected all 300 Astro Bots. There's one at the end of this level, like a secret one. I never got him. I should maybe just Google who it is. But I never got him because I was just like, yeah, I've already done this challenge. Like the platforming isn't a challenge. It's just the length of this level because it's really, really long. But yeah, I did end up finishing all of the other challenge levels and mostly enjoyed them. And what I kept thinking was funny was that, you know, for some of these levels, it might be quite hard and you might be hitting your head off against the wall. Then you would get to the end and the Astro Bot, who you would then save, I would usually have no idea what game they were from or who they were as characters. I was like, it might have made sense that they put like really like memorable or knowable characters at the end of these, so it feels a bit more of a reward. Like, oh, okay, cool, I got Joel from The Last of Us now because I managed to do this challenge. I think the only one I actually knew was, can you remember back on like the PlayStation 2, there was the Buzz game on PlayStation where it was like this game show with this guy with like big, like almost like Johnny Bravo blonde hair and glasses, and you had this like buzzer that you had to press to kind of answer the questions. He was one of them. He was the only one I recognized. I think there was one guy from Yakuza who was there as well, but otherwise I don't really know who they were. But yeah, so yeah, it might have been that the reward might not have been worth the effort in the end, but whatever. Nevertheless, though the platforming may not have been as good as Mario, the game's presentation and polish most certainly are. The game looks absolutely stunning, and the fidelity on the different assets in the game are incredible. You can see the power of the PlayStation 5 in the game with how well optimized it is, and the game's perfect amount of polish and scope really make it sing. And yeah, it's just such a beautiful game. Like, if you haven't seen it yet, please, yeah, just go watch someone playing the game on YouTube because it looks gorgeous. I think they've absolutely stuffed it full of detail. First off, obviously, is the love for Sony and PlayStation. There are like lots and lots of nods to the company's previous consoles, obviously, and gaming devices. But I think the coolest Easter egg I saw was that on some levels there are tight ropes that you have to walk along, and that the tight ropes were the cables from the PlayStation 1 controller. So it would be like that thick grey plasticky cable that they had with like the big kind of like semi like half moon sort of port that you would unplug into the PlayStation. And I think it was like something so very small and unnoticeable, but I thought it was just so cool that they thought to do that. You know, they thought to put that in as like an Easter egg, just to again to just show the PlayStation love of that, like what can we put into this game to that PlayStation players will really like. And furthermore, what is really cool in the game is that if you collect enough puzzle pieces, which you probably will, because it's the first building that you unlock on the crash site planet, you unlock a gotcha arcade, which was again a very big driving factor, I would say, in me playing the game and like not 100% in it, but I did get all of everything out of the gotcha machine because it was just so fun to do it. And what you can unlock is there are so it costs 100 coins, and what you can get out of the balls there are new paint colors for your DualSense jet, there are new outfits for your Astro Bot, and there are new animations for your Astro Bot companions. And the outfits are very cute, like there's lots of animal ones, and then there's also some really cool sort of Sony game ones. Like there's one for from the character from Bloodborne, there's a Jack and Daxter one, there's a Ratchet and Clank one. Yeah, there's then there's also kind of just generic like pirate outfit, spaceman outfit. In the end, I unlocked, I got a gold one where you're just a gold character, like your Astro Bot is completely gold, and I also got the gold one for the DualSense controller. So I was just rocking all gold, you know, just the bling bling, which was cool. And the animations, what they are is that like I said, a majority of the 300 Astro Bots you find, they are specific to some kind of game. And when you find them, they appear on the crash site planet, and they're just kind of there doing like a kind of idle animation. When I say idle, I mean it's like a really nice animation that they are doing. But what's cool is that if you manage to get an animation out of the gotcha machine, like each one has a specific animation that you get from this gotcha machine. So it would be that if you get it, then when you kind of interact with them on the planet, on the crash site planet, then they'll do this animation. So again, I don't want to spoil it too much, but one example is there is Nathan Drake in the game, and if you unlock his special animation, it's him playing a PlayStation 1, playing Dude Raider, and if you've played Uncharted 4, you'll get the Easter egg there. So it's kind of cool like that. Like again, it's just something nice to sort of collect, and it just amplifies the experience of the Sony and PlayStation lore throughout the game. But it's not just really the Sony details that made me smile, but smaller details like background animation or NPC animations There was some really nice ones, like for example on some of the beach levels there are just these little crabs like just wandering around, like they're really, really tiny, and instead of claws they have like on one hand a brush and on the other hand like a dustpan, and they're just kind of like sweeping up the beach, keeping it clean. And I was like, it's just like a nice little touch, you know, like very creative, like crabs. Instead of the claws, they have this dustpan and brush, and they're running around cleaning up, which is really, really nice. And again, it might not be something that everyone notices, but I think that's the game. The game itself is just like, there's just so much little detail and so much love put into it that if you do notice it, it just makes you smile. And that's kind of the best part about the game. Like, it just makes you smile throughout. The only thing about the presentation that didn't really impress me that much was sadly the music. And I think it's because most of the tracks, so like the tracks in the game are linked to sort of themes of the world. So, you know, there might be like a track that's for the Egyptian kind of themed worlds. There might be a track that's for the beach theme. There might be a track that's for the snow theme. So what like I said at the start of the episode, like these worlds are reused over and over again in the different galaxies. It also means the tracks are reused over and over again. So it's kind of like you hear them the first time and you're like, oh, that sounds nice. But then when you hear them again, they kind of get a little bit lost in the background because you're like, I've already heard this, and maybe they didn't really stand out that much. The only tracks that really stood out to me were on the Crash Site world. There's like this sort of Western theme track with like a whistling melody in it, which is really, really good. And also the track in the Gotcha Machine building. I think it's just because I spent so much time in there, because I did unlock, I think there's 160 different things you can unlock in there. I did unlock all of them. Each one costs you 100 coins, so you can work out how many coins I had to collect in the game to do it. Those two stood out, and like the Western one specifically is very memorable, very catchy. Like I still find myself kind of humming it to myself just out of the blue. But the rest of this music, was a little bit, sort of didn't really stand out to me, unfortunately. And if you think about Astro Bot, the Astro Bot series so far, one of the few things you might know about it is that it's one of the few series on the PlayStation 5 that actually goes out of its way to use all of the weird and wonderful features of that the DualSense controller has. And I think like in most of the reviews, Astro Bot has been applauded for doing this in this game too. So like in some of the levels, you need to tilt the controller to maybe tilt the world, or use it to, because your controller in the game is like a jet, to maneuver the jet. Or there are different sections where the controller becomes like a gun that you then have to aim by actually physically moving the controller. And there are also some where you have to, I don't know, like blow into the controller to like blow sort of what do you call it, like refuge out of pipes. And I think it's kind of like cool that they did this, but these mechanics to me always really remind me of like the old PlayStation, which, and I thought until now was kind of slowly dying out. And it's kind of like the PlayStation of like the early 2010s of, we need to do something kind of quirky to try and compete with Nintendo. So let's add gyroscopes, let's add movement, let's add like microphones and speakers to the controller, when they were really trying to, I guess, like I said, like compete with the Nintendo Wii, like back when they had the movement ones and stuff like that. And I think like a lot of this stuff is just kind of fluff, apart from the adaptive triggers, which do really feel cool. Like when you're pulling back a bow or when you're shooting a gun, like a trigger, they do feel really cool. But again, I feel like there's not really much other like use case other than those two. Maybe if you're climbing up a ledge, that might work. But I really don't enjoy using these quirkier inputs of the DualSense. It's kind of like I kind of cringed a little bit when I had to use them, because it really reminded me of like the PlayStation 3 and early PS4 days, where you're like, why are these still in the PlayStation 5? Like, didn't this stuff like die out? When you had to like flick the controller in one of the Uncharted games to throw a grenade. It's like, who thinks that's a good idea? Like, I think there's a reason no one uses them really, and I think they can be, when they're done well. Apparently in I've forgotten the name of the game, but is it Housemarque, their most recent game, the kind of roguelike 3D shooter. Apparently it's used really well in that. But for me, I just kind of, like I said, I just don't really get them. And I also thought it was a little bit crazy that when you first start the game, the audio is coming out of the speaker on the DualSense. And there's no way in the game to actually turn that audio off. You have to go into like the PlayStation settings and turn it off, which I also thought was just a bit like, why wouldn't you just have like an audio slider for the speaker in the game? yeah, I really didn't use it, and I think like I really wish like PlayStation would have just left these quirks behind, because the DualSense already costs like €80 or something like that, and I think the price is because all of this stuff is in there. And I think if they just ripped it out, it would make the game, the controller more affordable for everyone. And you might argue that, yeah, you know, Astro Bot is a homage to PlayStation's like 30-year history, and the quirky DualSense controls are a part of that. But yeah, the sections of the game that required me to use them just made me feel like the game was released back in 2014 rather than 2024, which, yeah, that your mileage might vary on that, but yeah, I really didn't like it. And yeah, that's kind of like, as I was playing, like, it really led me on to, well, what are they going to do next for Astro Bot? Because it seems that because the game sold so well, we will be getting more Astro Bot games. Already I'm recording this after the State of Play that happened in September, where Team Asobi announced that there will be 5 new, I think like they called them like speedrun levels, coming soon with Astro Bots from Helldivers 2 and Stellar Blade in them. And yeah, my main concern for this series is that, in my opinion, the most fun part of the game was finding the iconic video game Astro Bots, because it's mostly nostalgia in its purest form, and almost like fan service in its purest form. Because the reason that you're excited to go into the levels is to see what Astro Bots are there from which games, and to see if you know them. And if you do know them, you sort of feel like, oh yeah, you know, I'm like an OG PlayStation player, like pro gamer, like I know this game from 1998, of course. But yeah, spoilers, actually for me that wasn't the case. Most of the Astro Bots I had no idea who they were, and it's kind of crazy how many, I think especially like a lot of the Japanese centric games, how many of their characters just look like, oh, there's a generic anime character with big hair and a big sword, obviously trying to copy Cloud from Final Fantasy VII. But yeah, even though I didn't really know them all that well, the searching for them drove my enjoyment of the game more than the platforming. And having found all 300 of them, I would say that all or most of the big heavy hitters from the last 30 years of PlayStation history are already in the game in some way. Like, it's not like, for example, Monster Hunter. There's like, I think 2 Monster Hunter Astro Bots in the game. So obviously it's not from every single Monster Hunter game, but the series is there. There's only one really big, massive IP that's not, which makes me think maybe there's going to be some DLC featured around that IP. Like, I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to spoil it, but maybe that will come down the line. But otherwise, when you think about PlayStation, Sony IP, Sony adjacent IP, everything's there. So it makes me think, like, what are they going to do for Astro Bot 2? Because if they've already put all of these games into this game, what is going to be the fun of playing Astro Bot 2 if you're collecting the same characters again? Like, that doesn't really make much sense to me. So I guess, like I said, like, definitely all of the series or the game series that you would expect are in the game, but there are obviously, in a lot of series, there are a lot of different characters and different sort of, you know, I can't think of an example, but if you think like Crash Bandicoot, there's Crash Bandicoot, he was in the game, but there's also the bad guy of that game, and whoever, like, there are all of these side characters that maybe they put in, but I still don't think that's kind of like is going to be as fun as what it was in this game, because in this game it was such like a, oh my god, which kind of like Smash Bros, which game is going to be elevated enough to be put into this game. And I really feel like they already milked that 30-year history in this game, so how are they going to do it again? So yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what comes next, because I think there will be some kind of sequel. Maybe it's like less of a collectathon, like you aren't necessarily collecting the bots. Maybe it's more of like like Super Mario Odyssey, where there's some kind of you're going around and collecting, I don't know, discs, like game discs or something like that with old games on them. And maybe the worlds are a bit more open like that. But either way, whatever the sequel is going to be, there's definitely going to be more Astro Bot in the future. And I think maybe, you know, there might be more DLC. Maybe there'll be spin-offs like an Astro Bot kart racer. I'm kind of imagining the game almost like Little Big Planet, that, you know, this becomes this massive mascot and IP, and maybe some other studios start making spin-offs as well. I think that's going to happen. But the main question is, should you buy Astro Bot? And I think if you have any sort of nostalgia for PlayStation, then this game is a must-play. Its attention to detail is fantastic, and its nods and Easter eggs to PlayStation IP and PlayStation adjacent IP are so enjoyable. The game is a perfect love letter to the last 30 years of history. Finding all 300 bots was a blast because of the game's gorgeous and well-designed levels that can fall into cliche platformer tropes, but do shake some things up to make them feel fresh. The details of the game had a smile on my face for the entire playthrough, and it shows that modern games do not need to take 100 hours to beat and cost $250 million to make to be successful. Its platforming is fun, and it does have some challenging levels for those 3D platforming experts out there. However, if you do not have much nostalgia for PlayStation, I would not go into the game thinking it is going to be a game of the year. In my opinion, it is a contender to the 3D platforming crown, but cannot knock it off the head of the OG Super Mario. Unlike in Super Mario, I think there is less creativity for the player to play around with in the platforming because there is only a jump and hover jump in Astro Bot. Having some items hidden around some levels to expand your jump and movement range is cool. However, compared to Super Mario Wonder, where every level has some sort of wonderful twist, these items in Astro Bot seem a little like a half measure. Therefore, without the PlayStation love, I cannot see how this game is getting a 9 and 10 out of 10 from reviewers. For me, it was a great game. It's a well-polished 3D platformer, and it is definitely elevated by its PlayStation history, but it is not one of the best games of 2024. So yeah, that's kind of how I would sum up Astro Bot. Like, I think it is a great platformer. I don't think it's as good as Mario. I think, even though that's the part I enjoyed the most, was collecting the Astro Bots themselves and also seeing the nostalgia from PlayStation. I think if you remove that from the game doesn't really stand out as anything special. Like, it's just a 3D platform, a good 3D platformer. And I think that there are already a lot of good 3D platformers that maybe have a bit more of like a unique twist to them that isn't based around nostalgia. So yeah, guys, that has been episode 43 of the Beat Your Backlog podcast. Please let me know what you think of the episode, of my thoughts on Astro Bot. There's also a written review on my Ko-fi site if you're interested to read the review, where I did give the game an 8 out of 10. Because like I said, for me, it's not a 9 or a 10 out of 10 because I just don't think the game is that great or the platforming is that great. But yeah, as always, you can let me know by hitting me up on Twitter at Switch IndieFix, on Instagram at BYB_podcast, or you can also join our Discord server. So we do have a Discord server where we do discuss lots and lots of different gaming topics and other topics as well, where you will find a link to that server down in the description. And yeah, let me know if you played the game yourself, what you thought of it. If you're on Spotify, you can do that directly by leaving a comment in below. If you're anywhere else, like I said, hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Instagram, also on YouTube. I'm putting the videos up onto YouTube now of the podcast, just mostly because it's quite a good way to get new people in. So yeah, if you're not listening on Spotify, you can definitely go and comment there too. And yeah, wherever you are listening, it would be fantastic if you could give us a 5-star review, because reviews really help new people find the podcast. And if you haven't done so already, please make sure you like and subscribe wherever you're listening. So guys, thanks so much. Hope you have a great day. Bye bye.